This is John Cola with DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and what we're going to do today is discuss the differences between blending and juicing, and specifically for weight loss, but this applies, just the main differences, and I'm going to go over the pros and cons of each one and show you guys what each machine does. Now, some people confuse blending and juicing or smoothies, and they use the terms interchangeably. Nothing can be further from the truth. They're totally different. Although you can use your blender to juice if you use like a nut milk bag and strain it out. And you can also use your juicer as a blender to basically take the juice and the pulp and mix them together to kind of make a blended or mashed up mixture. So each of these machines, in my opinion, have their benefit. And if you're going for the weight loss, what I recommend over all else is, include the foods that are going to best feed your body, and those are the nutrient-dense foods. The nutrient-dense foods are the foods that you're seeing on the table here, fruits and vegetables. So today we have some arugula, some oranges, and some cucumbers. So these are the foods we want to include, and you want to get away from the junk food, the fast food, the McDonald's, eating out at restaurants. You want to eat as much fruits, fresh fruits and vegetables as possible, whether you're doing it in a juicer and whether you're doing it in a blender. No matter what, in my opinion, as long as you move your diet in the best direction and eat more fruits and vegetables, you're going to be far off better than the person that doesn't. So if that means you got to blend and not juice because you got a $25 blender from Walmart, and that gets more fruits and vegetables in it, that's great. If you got a juicer, hey, I think that's even better. So in any case, let's go over the differences between them, and I'm actually going to produce a juice and a smoothie in the blender in each one while I go over the pros and cons. So I already explained actually what I got, and the first thing we're going to need to do is prepare the produce. We can throw in a baby arugula into the blender and the juicer as is. We can also throw the cucumbers into both machines as is. The oranges, you can put the whole thing through the machine, but that being said, the orange coloring on the skin has some non-digestible chemicals that taste bad and will also give you gas, bloating, and belching. So, if you don't want that, I highly encourage you guys to cut off the orange coloring. So I'm going to do that first actually with a little knife here. And we're just going to go ahead and cut off the orange coloring. And we're going to leave all that white pith. The white pith is where most of the bioflavonoids and nutrients are contained within the orange, but how many people actually peel their orange and eat only the inside and not the white pith? So doing it and cutting your orange in this way, you're going to preserve and get the most nutrition in your juice or your smoothie. So as I cut this off, what I want to talk to you about is first the machines that we're using. So today we're using an Omega Vert 330 HD juicer. This is a slow speed juicer. It runs at 80 RPMs, and that's a really slow speed. And because it's slow, it's going to be quiet, and it's going to preserve the most nutrition in the juice. Some juicers run up to 10,000, 11,000 RPMs. That's a lot faster. And they may tend to oxidize the juice more. Let's go ahead and flip over to the blender now. So the blender that we're using today is the Vitamix Turbo Blend VS. And this is the one that I recommend if you want to, get a really good blender. All blenders are not created equal. All blenders will blend up, basically a liquid. But the Vitamix will do a little bit differently because it runs at such high RPM, like 27,000 RPM. That's magnitudes faster than the 80 RPM juicer. And it has fairly sharp blades to literally fractionate and cut up and micronize all the ingredients that you put inside it. If you use a standard blender from, say, Walmart that's not running so fast, that the blades aren't so sharp, it tends to leave nice large chunks. And when you leave large chunks in whatever you're drinking, you're not going to get optimal digestion out of it. So these are the two appliances that I recommend for juicing or blending. They will process a wide variety of things, although there are more specialized juicers if you want to juice certain items. So yeah, big differences between the store-bought blenders and the heavy-duty commercial blenders for people that really are into it and want to get the maximum nutrition out of the food. On the juicer side, same thing. You can buy an inexpensive juicer, but they're not going to work the same. Most inexpensive juicers are actually called centrifugal ejection style juicers, and those are the ones that run at high speed that may oxidize your food more. And I don't know about you, but I'm eating for the nutrition in the food, not just for the mouthfeel, not just for the texture, although that's definitely important too. I want to get the most nutrition out of my food because, in the end, you are what you eat and absorb. And I want to put the healthiest foods in my body so that I can be as healthy as possible. And to do that, we need to have the right tools. So that's why I prefer both these machines. We're just going to go ahead and cut the peel off this guy, and then we'll be back at you to discuss more of the pros and cons of both blending and juicing, because there's no one that is clearly the winner and which one is truly the best. Now we're ready to start using these appliances and sharing with you guys the pros and cons of each of them. So let's first start with the juicer. The juicer is really easy to use. It runs at a slow speed and it's relatively quiet. We got to go ahead and cut the oranges up a little bit smaller so that they will fit into the feed chute of the machine. Now that our produce is covered, we're ready to turn the machine on and start juicing. Now, one of the pros of juicing is that you could actually fit more produce or get more produce in you. For example, we're juicing 5 ounces of baby arugula here, but literally, in some juices, I'll put literally 1 whole pound of leafy greens into the juice, and that'll literally turn into about 1 and 1.25 cups of fresh vegetable juice. So in that way, you could get a lot more of the nutrition out of this, except the fiber. Let's go ahead and put some of this arugula into the juicer here. What the juicer literally does, it literally compresses down and squeezes, with the low RPM action on the Omega Vert juicer to extract the rich nutrition from the juice that's contained within the water. Now it removes all the fiber. So for some, that may be a benefit. I believe it is a benefit because, our bodies are nothing more or less than a juice extractor. We put stuff in our mouths, we're supposed to chew it really well into a mush, and then swallow it, and then guess what? Our body can only absorb nutrition that's in a liquid state with the little villi that's inside our intestines. So if something's not in a liquid state or broken down finely enough, it's just going to go right through us and not get absorbed. That's where the juicer comes in. It's going to literally, turn the food into the liquid and the fiber. And think about it, when we eat something, out of one side of us comes a liquid and the other side comes a fiber. So both are fairly important. Let's go ahead and put an orange in there. So the first thing is, once again, more quantity. You could literally juice 1 pound or maybe even 2 pounds of leafy greens, which are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, so you can get more nutrition in you. Another thing that's important with the juicer, because it is removing the fiber, and that's what our bodies should be doing if we're working properly, is that you may get better digestion. Especially after years and years of maybe not eating the right stuff, people's digestive systems are not working properly, and if something is in the liquid state, it's most likely to be digested and digested the easiest. Another thing about juicing is that it actually is one of the best ways to get an instant shot of energy. Some people say that within 30 minutes of juicing and drinking the juice, you're going to absorb the nutrition in the juice. Another benefit of juicing is that it's actually fairly quiet. I mean, I'm talking here over the juicer and it's running fine, and it's not that loud. So say you gotta, prepare your juice or smoothie in the morning, the juicer won't wake up the other family members in your family. As you can see, we're almost done juicing all this baby arugula here. It's doing very well. We got a whole bunch of juice and all the fibers coming out over here. I mean, this is the hard, indigestible fiber, and this stuff's actually fairly dry. Go ahead and put some more orange in there. So one of the things I like about the low-speed juicers is it's more similar to our teeth. I mean, if we would have to just use our teeth to chew all this stuff, and we could be a juicer, we could literally, squeeze all the juice out with our teeth at low RPMs or running really slow, and then spit all the pulp out. Normally you just swallow it and you let our bodies, separate the liquid from the pulp. So it runs at a slow speed, and I like this a lot because it's more similar to our body. With the blender, it runs at high speed, which, not as close to what our body does. That being said, if we are separating the pulp out from the juice here, if we wanted to have the pulp in, you could actually just take this pulp and mix it in your juice and stir it all up if that's what you desire. Then you're going to get the pulp and everything, but at a low speed, so it's not going to degrade the nutrition in the juice as much. So another big pro of juicing, in my opinion, is that places like the Gerson therapy, if you guys have heard of that, they use juicing to potentially heal people from their ailments. So people with cancer go to the Gerson therapy, do the Gerson therapy in Mexico, and they just literally drink juices to get these people better from incurable diseases in the body. So I don't know anybody that's doing that with the blended smoothies. Most of the places that really heal the people focus on the juice because you get all the nutrition out in the easiest way to absorb. I guess a few cons for juicing is that number one, it removes the fiber, and yes, we need fibers in our body to, keep us clean on the inside, although there is some fiber in this juice, especially if you use the Omega Vert. It makes one of the pulpiest juices, which you can filter out or you can leave in. Another con of juicing, as you can see, we used all this produce and we just got a whole bunch of juice, and we also got a lot of pulp. So, you can burn through a lot of produce very quickly, and a lot of it's, going to be in the pulp. So I recommend you get actually a good quality juicer that's going to make a fairly dry pulp like the Omega Vert does. Finally, the other con of juicing is that it can take more time. As you saw, it took some time to prepare the produce, but then put it through, it took some time. And now cleaning this juicer will take some time as well. This juicer takes me about 3 minutes to clean, and it's one of the most easiest to clean juicers that I know of. That sums up the pros and cons of juicing. Next, let's go over to the blender and talk more about the blending and why it may be better than juicing, but also why it may not be. While we're doing this, first we're going to put everything into the blender. So, for example, if we put the whole orange in there and turn the machine on, it may kind of blend it up, but it's not really going to do it all the way. So what's better than that is we need to actually just cut this into small pieces so that the blender can actually pulverize all of it. So I always recommend when putting things into the blender to do it in the proper ordering. So it's best to, when you fill up your blender, and I don't like to use water and add water to my blender, which is actually, in my opinion, a con of blending because you're diluting the nutritious foods. I like to only use the fresh fruits and vegetables in my blended or smoothies mixes, so I don't like to add water. Many people may have to add water to make their blender work properly if it's not a high-power blender. So that's just going to dilute the nutrition that you could be getting out of the food. So you can see here we just chopped all the oranges into little small pieces, and in this way the blender is going to be able to be more effective and blend the stuff up. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and chop up the cucumbers into little pieces so that the blender can blend this up as well. And yes, you can put in the seeds in the blender. It will pulverize those as long as you have a high power blender. Now if you don't have a high power blender, that seed may come out whole, when you're drinking your blended mixture or your smoothie. Once I get all the very liquid items into the blender, I like to turn the blender on. And that blends it right up. The next thing I'll do after I have the liquid is then I'll finally add the greens at the end. So once again, we got 5 ounces of baby arugula greens here. I like arugula because it's in the Brassica family. The Brassica family plants have shown that they may contain things like cancer fighters. They have a lot of phytonutrients and phytochemicals that can be very healthy to eat. One of my focuses on eating a healthy diet is focusing on fruits and vegetables that have the most nutrients in them and the least amount of calories. In this way, if you're eating low calories but high nutrition, you're feeding your body everything it needs. Most Americans eat a junk food or eat a lot of junk food, including processed foods and too many animal products that have a lot of calories but not a lot of nutrients in them. And yes, even arugula has protein in them. I mean, think about where does a cow get its protein? If it's out in the range, it's eating the grass, and that's how it makes all its protein. So we can eat these greens too if we eat sufficient quantities of them. So now that I got the arugula added in, I'm going to go ahead and turn this blender on. Alright, so we got that blended up, and it's actually a lot quicker than the juicing. So actually, let's get into the pros of the blending And the pro is that, it's much faster. It's also easier to clean because instead of a lot of parts, you just have one carafe to clean, maybe your cutting board and whatnot. So another thing I like about the blending is that you're gonna get the whole food, so you're getting the fiber and all. And fiber, yes, definitely is important in your diet. Another thing about the blending is that it may reduce the detox symptoms because now you're not just getting straight nutrition in your body, you're getting it mixed with some fiber, and your body has to work to get those nutrients out. So the fiber is gonna slow down the release of things like sugars if you're blending your fruits. And actually I recommend actually blending your fruits and but juicing your vegetables. Another thing that's a pro of blending is that you're gonna use less produce. So let's go ahead and show you guys what this made. We got literally a blended green smoothie, and we're gonna pour this off. And this is a nice, fairly thin mixture, but it's a lot thicker because it contains all the fiber. And all the produce we used, which was 2 small cucumbers, 2 oranges, and some arugula. Looks like we got up to about 3 cups of a blended smoothie there. And if we go over to the juice side and pour this guy out, it's a nice thinner consistency, more like a water. And we check that out. And we don't account for the actual foam on the inside. We actually got 2.5 cups. So we're losing a half cup, because the half cup is right here inside the fiber. So as you can see, it uses less produce to get more. So the fiber may be important to you to fill up. Now another thing I want to mention quickly is that you can do a hybrid. So you can juice your vegetables, so you can make a vegetable juice and then put it in the blender, maybe blend up some fruit with it to keep the fiber in the fruit. So you could actually do a little bit of both if you want. So next, let's get into the cons of blending. So the cons of blending are, number 1, as you heard, it's loud. It can be loud. I mean, this blade is spinning at incredibly fast speeds, and that, can wake up your sleeping family members if you're making your blended mixtures in the morning. Another thing about the blending is that because, it's running at 27,000 RPM, 80 RPM, 27,000 is running really fast! And the faster it spins, the faster the RPMs, the more it's oxidizing your food. So if you look really closely at this, this one is actually a lot more oxidizes, but it also fluffs it up and adds air. So the oxidation is basically like what happens when you scratch your car, it gets rusted. That's the nutrients degrading and lowering them. Besides lowering the nutrition in the food, it also injects air and adds air to this mixture. So part of the reason why this is more is because of the air in there. And when you're drinking more air, guess what? You're going to get more gas, belching, and potentially bloating as well. Another con of blending is if you don't have a high power blender, you got to add water. And as I mentioned before, that's diluting your mixture down. This is just 100% nutrition from foods. And in some blenders, you may have to add a nice amount of water to make it more liquidy. So that's the pros and cons of both blending and juicing. Now I'm going to get to try my delicious mixtures. I think I'll try the juice first. Wow, that actually tastes quite good. All you really taste is like the orange juice. So it just tastes like a little bit watered down orange juice, and you taste some green in there. But definitely tastes really good. Now we're going to go for the smoothie. It's a lot thicker. More like a really thick soup. To me, I like the juice better, but you may like the thicker mixture than the thinner mixture. I like it thinner, it goes down easier. You could probably juice more of it and drink more of the juice before you got full, whereas you couldn't drink as much smoothie. So, like I talked about in the pros and cons, if you don't have a lot of money, you can't buy a lot of produce, then maybe the blending is better for you. But if, that's not a concern to you, you're going to do what you need to do to get the nutrition in you, I get the juicer to, take out all the fiber and, of course, eat a big salad at night. But this is what I prefer and I think is more beneficial for weight loss. Matter of fact, there's a really good movie you guys should watch if you haven't seen it already. It's actually called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. If you go to hulu.com, HULU.com, and search for Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, you can watch this documentary film where a chap from Australia comes to the US and actually he lives on juices and he was fat, sick, and nearly dead. And over time of just drinking fresh juices and nothing else, he lost weight and got a lot healthier. So I'm confident that you guys could do it too. Whether you want to juice or you want to blend, I think both are excellent. So if I had excess weight to lose, I'd personally just mostly juice and maybe get some blended smoothies in there. The main thing you want to remember is you want to get away from the processed foods. Any way, in my opinion, you can include more fresh fruits and vegetables, whether it's juice, blended, or eaten in your mouth and chewed really well to turn it into a mush, is me far better than eating any of the processed foods or animal foods out there, and that's my main message to you. So if you're really into it, get a juicer, get a blender, so that you have the flexibility of doing both. Some days I feel like only juice, some days I feel like blending, some days I'm running late out the door and I gotta, use the blender because I don't have time to do the juicer. But whatever the way I'm doing it, I know I'm getting the best nutrition on earth by using these two appliances. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, learning more about the differences between blending and juicing. Once again, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.